Okay, folks, looks like we got some fake news to debunk. Old Kim Jong-un really owned the libs this weekend when he brought a particularly controversial party guest to the art show with him. That guest being Kim Yong Chol, his nuclear envoy, who was supposed to be helping with the negotiations at the Hanoi summit from a few months ago, in which Kim and Trump were supposed to meet, and which ended up getting grenaded by John Bolton. Now, what makes this man's presence at the party so scandalous, and particularly considering that he was with Chairman Kim, is because Western media, as well as South Korean media, I believe, had reported that the man had been purged, and it would appear now that reports of his death had been greatly exaggerated. It would seem that Mr. Kim Yong Chol is not one dead, fed to the dogs, or two blown up with a missile, or three spending a life sentence in a gulag. It would seem that after all of these reports from the Western media, Mr. Kim wanted to make it abundantly clear that Kim Yong Chol is firmly within the inner circle to this very day. Now, it's notoriously difficult to get information from North Korea as far as the day-to-day operations of the country go. Even the CIA has trouble knowing just exactly what's going on there and where all their nuke sites are. Seeing as how North Korea is so oppressive when it comes to their own people, makes it doubly hard to get any spies in there, since there's no modicum of freedom to exploit. The only way to get intelligence, I would imagine, is by somehow compromising and turning more senior North Korean officials. So how then, you may ask, did the Western media, and well, it was started in the South Korean media, one particular newspaper, how would they have gotten the information that this man had been executed? How would something like that, so scandalous, make its way out of North Korea and into the media? The answer is, of course, fake news' favorite magic words: sources say. They, of course, don't specify which sources, which I don't mind, since, I mean, with the best information, you're going to have very tough times trying to get an on-the-record source to talk to you. However, typically what an honest journalist would do in a situation like this is that if they have only an anonymous source, what they'll do is they'll try and go to another person who doesn't know that the journalist also has this other anonymous source, and try and independently verify what the first person said. Now, if the journalist can go to multiple sources and they both tell the same story anonymously, off the record, well, then the journalist can then ethically report on that news, because it's not something that just one person made up. It's something that multiple people think. However, from the way I read it in this story, it would seem as though this report of the death of this nuclear envoy, Kim Yong Chol, at the hands, and the orders, I would imagine, of Kim Jong-un, this was from an unverified source, and they published it anyway. That means they probably had one person who might live in North Korea or know something about North Korea who said, hey, this happened, and the newspaper in South Korea just ran with it. Now, yes, it is bad journalism on their part to run with that, but they are just some small newspaper in South Korea. What excuse do all of the American media folks who jumped on this story and said about how terrible it was and how it just proved that Trump was a fool for trying to negotiate with Kim? All they had to do was open up the story or see one of the tweets about it like I did, which stated very clearly that these were unverified sources. A story based on unverified sources is better known perhaps as a rumor. It is not news. If Susie says she saw Johnny and April kissing behind the dumpster, that's not really a source. You don't have news there, because any one person can say any number of things. It would seem to me that these media folks, as they so often do, ignored basic practices of journalistic ethics just so that they could own Trump. It would seem that journalistic ethics for these folks just don't apply when a particular rumor confirms your bias. And some of you might still be asking, hey, how does it confirm the media's bias to see that Kim Jong-un executed some envoy? And the answer is because the folks in the media interpret this as some sort of a repudiation of Trump's attempt at making peace with Mr. Kim. They seem to think that by executing this guy, what Kim is saying is that, That's what I think of your peace process. The guy who I was trying to have negotiate with you, he's dead now. Try negotiating with a body. Which I don't really know how the media infers that from Kim's behavior. I'm not really sure what you can infer from his behavior. However, someone who knows North Korea far better than I do, Michael Malice, who is the author of Dear Reader, great book, when this rumor came out, he actually said that it seemed like a positive thing with respect to the peace talks, not necessarily a positive thing in that some guy got, whacked for really no reason, but because in a communist system, in a core Stalinist 1940s communist system, what happens when the regime sets a goal and that goal is not met, there's always going to be some fall guy for it who ends up taking the blame, and he gets sent to a gulag. It's not that that person was necessarily at fault, but there has to be some person who is held responsible for the failure of the regime, because otherwise, if no one person is responsible, that would mean that the system itself is responsible, and they can't have the system be delegitimized. You can never admit, say, that communism doesn't work. You have to say, oh, well, this guy was just doing communism wrong. So therefore, Malice made the case that Kim killing this guy off actually showed that Kim was serious and that that was a goal of the regime. Now that begs the question, then, if Kim killing this guy off would have been interpreted as a sign that Kim was serious about the peace process and that he really wanted to make things work, even though things didn't go well in Hanoi, what does it mean now that not only that this man is alive and well and not in a gulag, walking free, but also attending parties with the chairman himself? It would seem as though the man's not even been sanctioned at all internally with North Korea. He has his full privileges as a senior oligarch in the country, or perhaps oligarch is the wrong term, but at least a member of the dictator's entourage. This can mean, one, that somebody else took the fall for the failure in Hanoi, or two, that Kim doesn't really care about the peace process, and that he's showing this guy off to say, yeah, things didn't go well in Hanoi, but that wasn't our goal. We didn't want to make peace to begin with. Because having, in Stalinist terms, if I can try and interpret this based on the way Malice put it, it would seem as though that in Stalinist terms, what Kim is doing by essentially promoting this guy, by being around him and allowing him to exist, he is commending his performance as the nuclear envoy, saying that in getting no deal with the U.S. and with having negotiations break down, that he somehow did a good job. Which, of course, would imply that the Kim regime's stated goal as of now, and retroactively, of course, is applied, being that they never wanted peace to begin with, and so things are going great because they didn't achieve any sort of disarmament or détente with the United States. And if that is, in fact, the case, that's quite sad and discouraging. But I'm still going to hold out hope. I hope that President Trump is able to try and make some kind of peace with North Korea, although it doesn't seem like things are going that way now. From what I understand, the Hanoi summit was grenaded by John Bolton. He made some unrealistic demands of the North Koreans, and they just walked out. But we'll have to see going on into the future. If you got anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and subscribing. And if you do subscribe, please do click the bell, because I do upload every day, and I'll see you back here in the next one.